At our anniversary dinner, her grandmother whispered, "He only married her for money." They were right, but now they are the ones who owe me. I never thought I would be posting here, but after what happened at our anniversary dinner, I need to get this off my chest. My wife's family has spent 10 years treating me like a gold digger who married their daughter for money. The twisted part is they were right in the beginning, but now the tables have completely turned, and they don't even realize it. This story starts when I was 17 and desperate. My dad abandoned us when I was 6, leaving my mom to spiral into alcoholism and abuse. Our apartment was a disaster zone of empty bottles and unpaid bills. Most nights, I went to bed hungry and woke up to screaming matches with bill collectors. School was my escape. Not because I was a good student, but because I found a group of friends who accepted my hand-me-down clothes and the bruises I tried to hide. The problem was, my friends were bullies who enjoyed making other kids miserable. I knew it was wrong, but I was so desperate to belong somewhere that I looked the other way as long as I wasn't the target. Then Sarah transferred to our school in 7th grade. She was this tiny, nervous girl with thick glasses and old-fashioned dresses that screamed easy target. Everything about her made my friends' eyes light up with predatory interest. The bullying started immediately. Knocking books from her hands, shoving her into lockers, making her eat lunch alone in the bathroom. I watched it happen every day and did nothing. Sarah would show up with red eyes from crying, and I felt sick watching her shrink into herself. But I needed my friends more than some stranger needed my help. The breaking point came when my friends cornered her after school and literally stuffed her into a locker, holding it shut while she screamed and banged on the door. Other kids were laughing and recording it on their phones. Something snapped inside me. I shoved through the crowd and yanked the locker open, catching Sarah as she fell out gasping and crying. I told everyone to back off and walked her to the bus. She looked at me like I had grown a second head, but she didn't say anything. After that day, everything changed. When my friends would skip class or get high behind the school, Sarah would find me in the library or sit next to me at lunch. She never asked why I helped her, but she started sharing her food with me. Lunch was the only real meal I got. Sarah was incredibly smart and patient. When I struggled with homework, because I had never learned proper study habits, she would explain things without making me feel stupid. When I needed money for school supplies, she would quietly slip me cash without making a big deal about it. Her parents noticed me hanging around and started inviting me for dinner. Their house was everything. Mine wasn't clean, warm, filled with the smell of actual home-cooked food. Her mom would ask about my day like she genuinely cared. Her dad would help me with math homework at their kitchen table. For the first time in my life, I experienced what a real family felt like. As we got older, Sarah and I became inseparable, but I always felt the weight of what I owed them. I realized I needed a car to get a job and start building a future. Cars cost money I didn't have, and insurance for a teenage driver was astronomical. I worked up the courage to ask Sarah's parents for help, expecting them to politely decline. Instead, her dad sat me down and asked about my plans for the future. When I told him I wanted to graduate and maybe go to community college, he exchanged a look with Sarah's mom and said they would help me buy a car as long as I promised to pay them back. They drove me to a dealership that weekend and bought me a reliable used Honda, $10,000. Just like that. I kept thinking there had to be a catch, but there wasn't. They just wanted to help me succeed. That moment changed everything for me. I realized I had a debt to this family that went far beyond money. They had saved me from a life of poverty, and probably worse. The least I could do was take care of their daughter and make sure she was happy. Sarah and I started dating officially after that. I drove her everywhere, made sure she felt safe and protected. She was the one who initiated most of our relationship milestones. Our first kiss, bringing me to her church, suggesting we get married young instead of waiting. I said yes because I felt like I owed her family everything. Marrying Sarah felt like the right way to repay that debt. We had a small wedding at her church, and I could see how proud her parents were watching their daughter marry the boy they had helped save. But here is what I didn't expect. Sarah's extended family had very different opinions about our relationship. Her uncle David made it clear from day one that he thought I was a gold digger. At family gatherings, he would make comments like, "Must be nice, having everything handed to you, and hope you appreciate what you have got here." Her cousin Michelle was even worse, constantly asking Sarah when I was going to pay back what I owed, and suggesting I was only with her for the money. The worst was Sarah's grandmother, who would look me up and down at every family event and mutter things like that. "Boy's only here for what he can get," just loud enough for me to hear. I tried to ignore it because Sarah's parents never treated me that way, but it ate at me. Every family gathering became a minefield of passive-aggressive comments and suspicious looks. Sarah would defend me, but I could see it was wearing on her too. The breaking point came at our 5th anniversary dinner. We were at Sarah's parents' house when Uncle David started his usual routine. "So, when are you planning to pay back that car loan? It has been what? 8 years now." Sarah's dad tried to change the subject, but David kept pushing. "I am just saying, a real man would have paid his debts by now. Sarah deserves someone who can actually provide for her, not someone who is still living off handouts." That is when Sarah's grandmother chimed in with the line that still makes my blood boil. "I told you from the beginning he was just using our family. Look at him. Still driving around in that car we bought him. Still taking our money every chance he gets." I had never taken another penny from them after the car, but the accusation hung in the air like poison. Sarah was crying. Her parents looked mortified, but I just sat there absorbing the humiliation, because what could I say? They weren't entirely wrong about my original motivations. That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I had been working construction for 3 years by then, slowly building up savings while living as cheaply as possible. I had actually saved enough to pay back the car loan twice over, but I had been holding on to the money for our future, maybe a house down payment, or starting a family. But after that dinner, I realized something important. As long as I owed them anything, I would never be seen as worthy of Sarah. So I did something that surprised everyone, including myself. Update 1. I am sure you guys have been waiting for this update from me, so here it is. I paid them back with interest, but I didn't stop there. I also started documenting every single gift, every dinner, every favor Sarah's family had given me over the years. I calculated the value of every birthday present, every Christmas gift, every family vacation they had included me on. I added up every dinner invitation, every time they had helped me with car repairs, every piece of clothing Sarah's mom had bought me, every emergency they had helped me through. The total came to over $32,000. I presented them with a check for the full amount at our next family gathering. The room went completely silent. Uncle David's mouth fell open. Sarah's grandmother actually dropped her wine glass. Sarah's parents looked confused and hurt. "What is this?" Sarah's dad asked, looking at the check. "This is me paying back every penny your family has ever spent on me," I said calmly. "The car loan, the dinners, the gifts, the vacation expenses, everything, with 5% interest calculated from the date of each expense." Uncle David recovered first, his face turning red. "You cannot just put a price on family hospitality like that." "Really?" I replied. "Because for the past 5 years, you have been treating everything your family did for me like a transaction, like I owed them something beyond gratitude and love, so I am closing out the account." That is when I delivered the line I had been rehearsing for weeks. "The thing is, Uncle David, now that all debts are settled, we can talk about who really owes whom." The confusion on their faces was priceless. Sarah's grandmother actually asked what I meant. I pulled out another folder I had prepared. "Since we are treating family relationships like business transactions, I thought you might want to see what Sarah and I have contributed to this family over the past 10 years. I had documented everything. Every time I had helped Sarah's dad with home repairs. Every time Sarah and I had provided free babysitting for her cousins. Every gift we had given. Every time I had used my construction skills to help family members with projects. Every family emergency where Sarah and I had dropped everything to help. The calculations were devastating. Sarah and I had provided over $50,000 worth of labor, gifts, and assistance to her extended family over the years. So actually, I continued, if we are keeping score, this family owes Sarah and me about $18,000. But unlike some people in this room, we don't consider love and family support to be transactions that need to be repaid. Uncle David was sputtering, trying to find words. Sarah's grandmother had gone pale, Even Sarah's parents looked shocked at the numbers. But I wasn't done. The real irony here is that yes, I did initially marry Sarah partly because I felt obligated to your family. You were right about that. But what you never understood is that somewhere along the way, that obligation turned into genuine love, not just for Sarah, but for her parents who treated me like a son when my own father abandoned me. Looked directly at Uncle David. You have spent 10 years accusing me of being with Sarah for money. But the truth is, I have been supporting this family financially and practically for half a decade. The only person who seems obsessed with money and debt in this relationship is you. Sarah was crying, but this time, they were tears of pride, not humiliation. Her parents were looking at me with something I had never seen before. Respect mixed with a little bit of awe. Sarah's grandmother tried one last weak attack. Well, you still married her under false pretenses. That is when Sarah herself stood up and delivered the knockout blow. Actually, Grandma, he told me about his feelings of obligation on our 5th anniversary. We talked about it, went to counseling, and worked through it together. The fact that he was honest enough to examine his own motivations and grow from them is one of the reasons I love him. Unlike some people in this family, he is capable of personal growth and genuine self-reflection. The room was dead silent. Uncle David looked like he wanted to crawl under the table. Sarah's grandmother was staring at her wine-stained dress. Even the cousins who usually backed them up were avoiding eye contact. Sarah's dad finally broke the silence. I think some people in this family owe you both an apology. That was 6 months ago. The family dynamics have completely shifted since then. Uncle David avoids me at gatherings. But when he does interact with me, it is with grudging respect. Sarah's grandmother actually thanked me last month when I helped her fix her kitchen sink, though she could barely get the words out. More importantly, Sarah and I are stronger than we have ever been. Working through my feelings about our relationship's origins brought us closer together. We are planning to start trying for kids next year, and for the first time, I feel like I truly deserve the happiness I have found with her. The best part is that I no longer carry any guilt about how our relationship started. Yes, I married her partly out of obligation, but that obligation was based on genuine gratitude for the love and support her family showed me. The fact that it grew into real love doesn't invalidate the foundation. It proves that sometimes the best relationships grow from unexpected soil. And now, every time someone in Sarah's family treats me with the respect I have earned, I remember that sometimes the best revenge is simply proving your worth through actions instead of words. Edit. A lot of people are asking about the calculations. Yes, I literally kept receipts and records going back years. My construction background taught me to document everything, and I am naturally detail-oriented anyway. The look on Uncle David's face when he realized I had actual documentation was worth every hour I spent organizing it. Edit 2. For people saying I was petty, you are absolutely right, and I don't care. 10 years of being treated like a gold digger, while actually being one of the most supportive family members, deserved a proportional response. Update 2. Uncle David couldn't let things go after our anniversary confrontation. 2 weeks later, he showed up at my house while Sarah was at book club, drunk, and carrying an expensive bottle of whiskey. I still don't buy your act, he said, pushing past me into my living room. You are the same broke kid who saw an opportunity. He pulled out his phone showing a divorce lawyer's contact. So here is the deal. Divorce Sarah quietly and walk away with nothing, or I tell her the truth about what kind of manipulative bastard she really married. Are you actually trying to blackmail me into divorcing your own niece? I asked, genuinely amazed, when I pointed out that Sarah's a teacher with no significant assets worth gold digging for. His confidence wavered. If I was really after money, don't you think I would have aimed higher than an elementary school teacher? You know what? I said, pulling out my phone. I think you should tell Sarah everything you just said. She should know her uncle tried to blackmail her husband and thinks she is too stupid to recognize love after 10 years of marriage. I started dialing Sarah's number. Uncle David went pale and practically ran for the door. When Sarah got home and heard the story, she was furious. That son of a bitch actually thought this would work. We drove straight to her parents' house. Her father called Uncle David immediately and tore him apart, ending with, "If you ever interfere in their marriage again, you will not be welcome at family gatherings." I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. At Christmas dinner, Uncle David stood up during grandmother's traditional toast with another manila envelope. Before you finish, there is something the family should know about our dear son-in-law. He pulled out bank records. He has been systematically draining money from their joint account. Over $12,000 in secret withdrawals. Plus hiding side job income, while letting Sarah pay more than her fair share. The room went dead silent. Everything he said was technically true. I had been withdrawing cash and keeping side money separate, but he left out one crucial detail. You are absolutely right, Uncle David, I said, standing up. I have been keeping money secret from Sarah. Sarah's face went white, but you forgot to mention why. I turned to Sarah. I have been planning to propose to you again, not because our marriage isn't valid, but because I wanted to give you the proposal you deserved this time, because I love you, not because I felt obligated. I pulled out a ring box. All that secret money? It went toward this ring and a renewal ceremony with a honeymoon in Ireland. I got down on one knee right there in grandmother's dining room. Will you marry me again? The room exploded. Sarah was crying and said yes. Her family was cheering and taking pictures. And Uncle David was standing there holding his useless evidence, looking like he wanted to disappear. As I slipped the ring on Sarah's finger, I looked at Uncle David. Thanks for giving me the perfect moment to do this. I couldn't have planned it better myself. Sarah's grandmother, the same woman who used to call me a gold digger, stood up and addressed Uncle David directly. You spent years trying to poison this family against a man who clearly loves my granddaughter. Tonight, you tried to humiliate him, and instead gave him the chance to show exactly what kind of man he is. One who works extra jobs for months to give his wife her dream honeymoon. She paused, looking directly at Uncle David. If you spent half as much energy on your own relationships as you do trying to destroy them, you might be happier, but instead, you have wasted years being bitter about a love story you cannot understand, because you have never experienced anything like it yourself. That was the killing blow. Uncle David stood there for another moment, then quietly put his papers back in the envelope and left. He didn't say goodbye to anyone, didn't apologize. His wife followed him a few minutes later, but not before apologizing to the whole family for his behavior. The rest of the evening was magical. We spent hours planning our renewal ceremony and talking about our trip to Ireland. Sarah's family kept congratulating us and taking pictures of the ring. Her grandmother insisted on calling her friends to tell them about the proposal. You know, he said, drying dishes. I have always thought actions speak louder than words, but tonight you proved that sometimes the most powerful action is choosing exactly the right words at exactly the right moment. He paused, then added. David thought he was exposing a fraud, but instead, he helped reveal something beautiful. Your love for my daughter has grown from obligation into something so genuine that you wanted to propose to her again. Just to prove it to yourself. I started to thank him, but he held up his hand. Don't thank me, he said. Thank you. For 10 years, you have been the man my daughter deserves. Tonight, you proved you always will be. 3 weeks later, we found out Uncle David and his wife are getting divorced. Apparently, the Christmas incident was the last straw in a marriage that had been falling apart for years. According to family gossip, she told him she was tired of being married to someone so consumed with bitterness that he couldn't stand to see other people happy. I might feel bad for him if he hadn't spent a decade trying to destroy my relationship with the woman I love. Sarah and I are planning our renewal ceremony for this summer, followed by 2 weeks in Ireland. We are also starting to try for kids, because after everything we have been through, we are more certain than ever that we want to build a family together. And every morning when I make Sarah her coffee, I think about how Uncle David was wrong about everything except one thing. I am getting something valuable out of this marriage. I am getting a lifetime with my best friend, my greatest supporter, and the love of my life. That is worth more than all the money in the world. Edit. A lot of people are asking about how Uncle David got our bank records. Turns out he has a friend who works at our bank who violated privacy laws to help him. Sarah and I filed a complaint, and both Uncle David and his friend are in serious trouble. Edit 2. The ring was absolutely worth every hour of overtime I worked to pay for it. Sarah hasn't stopped staring at it. Edit 3. To the people saying this is fake because the timeline doesn't work. Uncle David confronted me in November, Christmas was in December, and I had been saving for the ring since the previous summer. The timeline works perfectly if you actually read the posts. Final update, I said I was done updating. But Uncle David gave me one final story that is too perfect not to share. Sarah and I had our renewal ceremony last weekend. A beautiful vineyard reception with 60 close family and friends. Everything was perfect until halfway through the reception when Sarah's cousin Michelle rushed over looking panicked. "Uncle David just showed up uninvited," she whispered. "Security is trying to handle it, but he is demanding to be let in." Sure enough, there he was at the entrance, drunk and arguing with the venue coordinator. When he saw us approaching, his familiar smug grin appeared. "There they are," he announced loudly. "The happy couple, David. You weren't invited," I said calmly. "You need to leave." "Oh, come on," he slurred. "I brought a wedding gift." He pulled out another manila envelope. "This time, I have proof that our boy here has been having an affair for the past 6 months." The crowd gasped as he waved photographs dramatically. "These pictures show him meeting with the same woman multiple times. Secret meetings, always when Sarah wasn't around." "Explain that, you cheating bastard." Then Sarah's grandmother, who had gotten close enough to see the photos, started laughing. "David," she said clearly, "you absolute fool." "What?" Uncle David looked confused. "The woman in these photos is Margaret O'Sullivan. She is the travel agent who planned their honeymoon to Ireland and helped coordinate this renewal ceremony. Of course he was meeting with her. He has been planning this surprise for months." The silence was deafening. I watched Uncle David realize he had screwed up spectacularly again. Sarah's grandmother wasn't finished. "David, you have spent 12 years trying to destroy the happiness of two people who have done nothing but love each other. Tonight you showed up drunk to accuse my grandson-in-law of adultery based on photographs of him planning surprises for his wife." She paused, looking around at our guests. "I am 78 years old, and I have never seen a more pathetic display of jealousy and spite. You are no longer welcome at family gatherings. And if you ever try to disrupt my granddaughter's happiness again, I will make sure the entire family knows exactly what kind of man you really are." The crowd burst into applause. Then Sarah stepped forward. "Uncle David, look around this room. Everyone here loves us and came to celebrate with us. You drove here to try to destroy our happiness on one of the most important days of our lives. My husband spent 6 months secretly planning the perfect honeymoon, working overtime to pay for it without saying a word about the sacrifice. Uncle David saw evidence of this love and immediately assumed it was betrayal. That tells you everything about how his mind works." She looked back at Uncle David. "I feel sorry that you are so bitter. You cannot recognize love when you see it. You cannot destroy what we have, because what we have is real." Uncle David stood there holding his useless photos, looking like a man who had just destroyed his own life. Then he quietly walked toward the exit. Just before leaving, he turned back. "Sarah, I am sorry." "I know you are," she replied. "But that doesn't erase all the years you spent trying to hurt us." He nodded and left. The rest of the reception was perfect. "During our first dance," Sarah whispered, "Thank you for loving me enough to do this again." "Thank you for loving me enough to let me," I whispered back. Later that night, Sarah laughed. Poor Uncle David. He never understood that the harder he pushed, the more obvious it became how wrong he was. We leave for Ireland tomorrow, 2 weeks celebrating a love that started with obligation and grew into something we never could have imagined. Uncle David spent years trying to use photos and documents to tell our story, but he always got it wrong. Our real story isn't in evidence or bank records. It is in the choice we make every day to build a life together. It is in morning coffee and boring work stories and never doubting each other, even when some bitter man shows up with proof of betrayal. That is what Uncle David never understood. Love isn't something you prove or disprove with photographs. It is something you build together, day by day, choice by choice. Now, if you will excuse me, I have a honeymoon to go on with my wife.